Cool. So let's have a chat about quote interpretation. So you mentioned that you wanted to go through the prompt. If poverty is the mother of crime, stupidity is the father. I think that's one of the ASA prompts.
Yeah.
So the first thing to know before you deconstruct kind of any prompt, let me just do this. There we go. Cool. The first thing to know before you deconstruct any prompt at all is to know that generally the quotes are from like an Abraham Lincoln, an Oprah Winfrey, or someone like that. So you want to have respect for whoever said the prompt and assume that they know more than you, right? If you say a prompt and you think it just, oh, it's super reductive, it just means this, probably you're missing the point. Or even if you're not, it's in your interest to imagine that you are missing the point and to try and look deeper, okay? The second thing to, and also too, within that is if there's any use of metaphor or figurative language or the inclusion of an extra word that didn't strictly need to be there. Like, so for example, there was a prompt the other day a student sent me and it was, I can't remember the full thing, but it started with the machine of government. And then it said something kind of negative about government. I can't remember what. But if we look at that, the word machine there, you can see the word machine didn't strictly need to be there. Yeah. And so you want to ask yourself what flavors and connotations are being brought to the word government by the inclusion of the word machine. What do you think?
Machine is more like mechanical.
Exactly. Yeah. So something
But
mechanical, unforgiving,
yeah,
inhumane, kind of rigid, metallic. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly right. Okay. So you want to hone in on anywhere where there's something metaphoric or something that didn't need to be there. Know that whoever said it could have just left that out.
yeah,
But the fact that they chose to put it there gives you an understanding of what it was that they saw or were trying to communicate. Now, usually the prompts are said like 200 or 300 years ago. So for that to make its way 200 or 300 years and get its way into a medical school entrance exam, there's something of substance there. And the inclusion of those little words or metaphoric ideas is the thing that you should be honing in on that will help you understand what it was they were communicating that had that prompt last so long. That's the first thing. Second thing is, ASA probably bickered over a boardroom table for weeks to decide this particular prompt. And we know that their intention or why they exist is to discriminate who can and who can't get into medical school. So they're going to pick prompts that help them do that. Okay. All right, good. So keeping those things in mind, you want to pay close attention to all of the kind of metaphoric ideas. So let's start with if poverty is the mother of crime and stupidity is the father. What words in there aren't meant literally?
I think mother and the father.
That's right. Okay. Now, what kind of connotations or flavors is the use of the word mother? They could have just said poverty and stupidity lead to crime and left it at that. But they chose to say this instead. And so we want to hone in on this and understand what is it about this that can help us better understand what the person was trying to communicate. So in light of that, what flavors do you think that mother and father bring to the sentence?
Because I think you need both mother and father to have the child.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then also we could look at the connotations of each one individually and see how that changes the sentence. Put a pin in what you just said there. We'll come back to that. But let's just first look at mother. What's the essential part of a mother? And by essential, I mean the thing without which you couldn't literally be a mother.
Having the womb.
A womb. That's right. So the womb is the environment in which a thing originates, is nurtured, sustained, and then ultimately violently birthed into physical reality.
Yeah.
So there's some sense in which the person's saying this, that poverty is a womb of crime. It's something that nurtures it, sustains it, in which crime originates.
Yeah.
Right? But a womb isn't enough for a child by itself. You need another contribution, the father's contribution.
Yeah.
Now, if the mother's contribution is enduring and sustained, a 9-month contribution, the father's contribution is comparatively
like immediate.
It's much shorter. That's right. Okay. It's a short, impassioned spark that sets off the fire, so to speak. Now, in light of that, what we just said about father, do you think stupidity here means dumb people?
Not necessarily. No.
No, it's a short, impassioned kind of spark, so it must be stupid behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good. Now, let's go back to the mother and the father. Both need to come together. Okay. So we've got a mother and a father. So we've got poverty and stupidity coming together to create crime. But without poverty or without stupidity, you can't have it. So that's to say two things. Poverty without stupidity doesn't equal crime, and stupidity without poverty doesn't equal crime. right? So let's look at poverty without stupidity. Where is the relevance of this? Or where can you see in the world the idea of perhaps poor people or people in poverty being thought of as criminals, even when they're not behaving stupidly?
Like the American Africans.
Yeah. So in ghetto America, Latin
Yeah.
Americans or African Americans, basically Black Lives Matter. The idea that if you are in poverty, you are a criminal until proven otherwise.
Mm.
Okay. And then on the opposite hand, where can you be stupid? You can act stupidly, but it doesn't count as crime just because you're not poor.
Because rich people got bailed out of the crime, like the
Yeah.
prison. Yeah.
Yeah. Rich white people or, kid at Duke University,
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's not go there on YouTube. But misbehavior by rich white people, and they get off because they go to an Ivy League school, their dad's rich, or whatever it might be. Okay, so you can see that there's the poverty or wealth is indexing criminality, or at least perceptions of criminality. Okay, so that's the issues here. So there's the prompt itself, rather than an agree or disagree. There's the prompt itself, but then there's the issue that it points to. So you want to see a prompt, Zane, as kind of like a signpost.
Yeah.
It's pointing over there at something, but at what? In this case, it's pointing at criminality and how wealth indexes that. All right. Now, if we go over, I think we might have discussed this before, but do we discuss the ACT scaling test and the dependence on the stimulus material and such?
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay. Just for the sake of the recording, I'm going to quickly share screen and pull it up. So this is the ACT scaling test. This is another test administered by ASA, and Mr. Doug McCurry very generously has left us detailed information about what the lowest, mid, and high answers consist of for the written component of this test. So the weakest answers depend on the stimulus material, and they just summarize and paraphrase. Right. So we've all done that. Yeah, I agree, or yeah, I disagree. Right. But you want to move on and have a comprehension of the issue. Right, the issue that it's pointing at. Middle range then moves away from the issue, away from the stimulus to comment on the issue. Eventually, we have independent thought, engage with the issues and go beyond the obvious and recognize complexities. Now, the complexities here might be in terms of your emotional intelligence. So, for example, it's easy to say, Black Lives Matter, racist cop, structural violence. But probably that cop didn't get into the police force to murder George Floyd. Probably got a wife and kids, no doubt a well-meaning public servant. So what happened? I'm not trying to be apologetic or make excuses. He obviously did the wrong thing, but I don't think it's quite that simple. Maybe we see the over-reporting of police violence in ghettos, but we don't see the reporting of ghetto violence towards police members.
Yeah.
And perhaps the police member has wrongly attributed that kind of perhaps violent history and experiences onto George Floyd. I don't know, I'm guessing. But the point is I'm recognizing complexities. Okay. The strongest answers are aware of the complexities in both the issue and the stimulus. Okay. All right, good. Now, have we ever talked about, just for the sake of going into additional ones, did we talk about other ones like he who knows how to be poor knows everything, or
No, I don't think we did. Nah.
Do you want to do another one?
Yeah, just do that one. Yeah, that's the one that
He knows how to be poor.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's look at the phrase, he who knows how to be poor. Maybe write it down because it's easier when you can see it in front of you.
Yeah.
And we'll go through it together, okay?
Yeah.
He who knows how to be poor knows everything. So step one, assume that the person speaking knows exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Step two, look for, actually, in fact, now I remember, I might just flash it on the screen because I wrote down a list of suggestions of what you might like to, I'll just put this here. So here, these are 9 questions. Now, sometimes you skip to question 5 because sometimes if there is kind of unusual words, metaphoric statements and things like that here, you can ask, what are the, maybe we'll go through one by one. Firstly, what are the unusual, metaphorical, unnecessary parts of the sentence? So what's unusual about the sentence? He who knows how to be poor knows everything.
Like knows everything.
Maybe I'll actually just give me a tick. I'm just going to open up a Word document and we'll do it there. Knows everything. Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Why is that weird or strange?
Because it is nearly impossible to know everything, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Give me 2 minutes, bro. I'm just... All right, cool. And then what else? What's the second thing that's weird about the sentence?
How to be poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that strange?
Because people in the liberal capitalism are always trying to be rich rather than being poor.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right, great. So that's obviously a bit strange. Now, the person could have just said, he who is poor knows everything. Okay. Now, in light of, but let's look at the how to be, though. So usually the word how to be, that's like, you know, you have to go to uni to learn how to be a teacher or how to be a doctor. It generally implies some kind of striving, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're striving for something, then that's kind of rendering positive qualities onto it, isn't it? Because usually poor is if you do everything else wrong, that's the default. I mean, if like severe poverty, like on the street, taking drugs type poverty. Obviously, not all people are like that. But that brand of poverty is obviously the if you do nothing and you just get everything else wrong, that's the default. But this person isn't saying that. I probably shouldn't say that. It's very discriminatory. Forgive me if I've offended. Where was I going? All right. So do you think now, in light of the knows everything and the how to be, that the poor here that we're referring to is literally poor?
I don't think so, no.
No. So it's whatever this poor thing is this person's talking about, it's something that you want to strive towards, upon which you won't know literally everything, but probably you'll know everything that's important to know. Okay. So I think close to what you just said earlier as well. I don't know if so we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're talking about 4. How does the how to be poor and the know everything modify the idea of poor? And we've said that it's positively. Okay. Now, in light of that modification, we've got to try and understand it. Okay. So how to be poor? How do we understand that? I think what you said earlier is pretty good about how the default today is that if you don't do anything, you're just going to be commodified. You'll scroll on Instagram, you'll be licking on your dopamine lollipop, and you'll become the commodity. Your attention is the commodity. And they will instill in you certain desires, because capitalism manufactures us into the kind of political bodies and moral subjects that can thrive within capitalism. And we need to be made or remade to value the kinds of things that for all of human history have been vices, like lack of discipline and self-control. And so capitalism or companies specifically via social media advertisements will instill in us desires like having a Louis bag or whatever it might be, and then we'll commodify those desires as we will exchange our money to feel fulfilled as a result. Okay. Yeah. Whereas the opposite, what this is saying, perhaps he who knows how to be content with what they have knows everything that's important to know. Perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Now, in what sense is that true? We can engage with that. Are there social issues that this is pointing towards? What kind of social issues is this kind of, remember how we said earlier about let's look at the issues? What issues do you think this is pointing at in light of that discussion?
I guess maybe conformity.
Yeah, I think that's in there.
Yeah.
What else?
Like focusing too much on pursuing material wealth.
Materialism, consumerism, I think that's definitely in there. You know, and perhaps social media, surveillance capitalism, as you mentioned, a couple of themes in there. Very good. Right. So you wouldn't just want to go, yeah, I agree, yeah, I disagree, or no, I disagree. Right. If you ever find yourself doing that, just ask them, well, why do I? You know, rather than that I do. Okay. But we can see here that this is kind of directing us towards, it's a prompt. The word prompt is important. It's prompting us towards something. It's best to think of it like an invitation. It's an invitation to discuss something. Okay. But just remember that the thing that you discuss needs to be the part of the quote that corresponds to the theme in general. Same as like, sometimes you can imagine if you're around a circle, imagine you're a PhD at a cocktail party and each of the prompts is said by someone in the circle. Now, you're aware that there's a conversation being had here, but you'll direct your response to one person. You'll say, it's funny you said that, but you respond to them directly. But in your response to them, you'll pick the thing that they said that is part of the conversation, not something that doesn't have. Like, so for example, in the human nature set, one of the prompts says cooperation is the essential characteristic of human nature. But cooperation has nothing to do with the set. So if you were to write a conversation on cooperation, you wouldn't be in the conversation, so to speak. You want to focus in that set on that is the essential characteristic. Is there or is there not an essential characteristic of human nature? Anyway, I'm a bit off track now. So when I say how can I engage with issues about the complexity, just think of it. Yeah, and then we could think of this at the level of, so do you remember in the horizontal vertical trick?
Yeah.
Individual, family, yep. So we got that. So let's go up that ladder and have a look. So we're thinking consumerism, materialism, and contentment with what we have at the level of individual, right? So I guess I think of asceticism, Diogenes and the Greek cynics. Diogenes was a philosopher that famously lived in a tub on the side of the road. Perhaps contentment at the level of family. I think there's a lot in families these days, that kind of Western mindset of, the world is seasonal. We've got summer, winter, spring, autumn. Sometimes you got it like the tree drops the dead leaves and stands through the barrenness of winter, knowing spring's going to come. But in the West, it's like we always want the harvest right now. We get in a relationship and it's got to be summer all the time. As soon as it gets, wintry, we leave.
Okay.
So in the family, maybe this is talking about he who knows how to be content with the peaks and the troughs of a relationship, who knows how to stay when the cards are down, who thinks not that the grass is greener, but that the grass is greener wherever you water it.
Yeah.
He who knows how to be poor at the level of community. I think there's lots of communities that have different kinds of poverty. Can you think of any? What kind of communities go through different kinds of poverty, particularly ethnic communities, religious communities? Do any come to mind at the moment for you?
Not for me at the moment.
How about the Uyghur Muslims in China?
Oh yeah, maybe.
They're going through the kind of poverty that is discrimination.
Yeah.
There's obviously the Jewish population in the Holocaust. There's African-American populations in general and in America during the slavery period and after.
Yeah.
There's ghetto America, even ghetto Australia to a different degree. I'm just brainstorming. You won't necessarily talk about each of these things, but thinking of it at the different levels as a brainstorm allows you to, let's have a look at ethnicity. Who knows how to be poor ethnically? There's something there about first developing nations. I probably wouldn't talk about it. And I guess nation and globe, who knows how to be, I think at the level of globe though, there's ecocide.
Yeah.
So who knows how to be content with what they are rather than constantly exhausting the Earth's resources for more. Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of went off on a tangent there and just downloaded a whole bunch into your brain. But what is there anything now, having gone through that, that you want to ask further about quote interpretation?
Not much. It all makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's leave that there.